Just a little bit of background about me. So I'm a clinical academic working in global public health, completed my PhD from Oxford in digital education. And so hopefully this will give you some reassurance that what I'm talking about is credible and legitimate, and we'll come on to this later on. But I've got a good understanding of pedagogy and what you need to do to create content online that is both accurate, informative, but also engages the people that you're trying to talk with. I've done academic fellowships at Harvard and Stanford in global health and digital health. So again, I've learned from some of the very best people in the field about how you should create trustworthy online content and convey that to the general public. And I run myself a series of online educational platforms across YouTube, Meta and TikTok, all aimed at improving general health literacy, that have 300,000 plus subscribers. And over time, my videos have had over 100 million views. So I think this isn't to just say, look, I've been there and done this. It's also to say you can have massive impact beyond the clinic. So if you're in clinic and you're seeing 30, 40, 50 patients in a day, obviously that's important. It needs to be done. But I think if you want to share that knowledge and your general ability to communicate with people, I think online is the place to do that. And hopefully I'll convince you through today's talks that this is the place that you need to be. And over the past 8 months, I've been actively concentrating on growing a LinkedIn presence. And I think I've learned some things by analysing hundreds and hundreds of LinkedIn posts that I think will deliver huge value for you today. But you'll be the judge of that. So today's talk is going to be split into 3 main parts. Part 1, we're going to concentrate on LinkedIn. Part 2, we're going to focus on creating credible content online. And I'm going to talk about my experience with Academy of Medical Royal Colleges last year as to how you should go about creating credible content. And finally, we're going to have some application and a Q&A, because I think it's all well and good you being sat here, me talking to you, but actually I think you want to get something out of this where you can deliver a LinkedIn post that's based on this educational value today. So in terms of the aims, a deep dive, part 1's going to be focus on LinkedIn. So we're going to do 5 case studies of health professionals who I think are excelling on LinkedIn and what you can learn from them in terms of best practices. Part 2 is going to be about creating credible content online, so we'll use best practices for identifying the best sources and how to use them and cite them, and then look at key resources that you need to be aware of to facilitate this. And then we'll go into a practical application with a Q&A at the end. And I hope that by the end of this, you're going to have a really good LinkedIn post that's ready to post and share today. So by the end of the talk, you should feel much more comfortable and aware of what guidelines you can turn to and cite and use as a resource. Have really clear examples of real-life case studies that you can go back to and refer to, and then also have 3 ideas about what you're going to do on your own LinkedIn in the next 30 days. So let's start off with LinkedIn. So why LinkedIn? I know that as a health professional, you may not necessarily turn to LinkedIn because, for example, if you're going through a training program, you start off, you do your junior house officer job, senior house officer jobs, you move into your core training, specialty training, and become a consultant at the end. So people in the medical specialty may think, well, there's no point going on LinkedIn because I don't need to necessarily go off that pathway. I've got a clear pathway that runs through to me. I have all my contacts who I meet daily in the clinic and through the hospitals, my consultants, I network with the hospital managers. I'm going to have my post at the end. But actually, in today's modern era, you're more likely to be a portfolio GP, for example, or a portfolio consultant dermatologist. And I think LinkedIn is really important for several reasons. 1, it builds credibility amongst your peers and also the general public. Secondly, it's a great source of leads. So if you have a private clinic, for example, LinkedIn can be the perfect place to advertise that and see it as lead generation. Secondly, it's a really great source for trustworthy content. In a huge survey, most people, when they were surveyed across all the different varieties of platform content, so TikTok, Instagram, Meta, etc., found that LinkedIn was actually the one where people found you're most likely to trust the people on there. And also, it's a great place in terms of generating purchase decisions for businesses. So in terms of one-to-one work, I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to discuss 3 key things. First of all, how often do you post on LinkedIn, and try to be honest about this. Secondly, what holds you back from posting more frequently, and what would you like to get out of this talk? Because I think if you're honing in on one thing that you want to get out of this talk, you're much more likely to take something valuable away. So I'll just give you 30 seconds to a minute for this, and just have a conversation with the person next to you and try use these as some trigger points. And then I'm going to ask a couple of you to just share your opinions with me. So please be prepared to talk and I'll pass the mic to you, okay? So Ellie's been also very modest. She said that she's now got over 1,000 connections on LinkedIn, which is actually a huge number, but she hasn't posted yet and has been held back by some of these things. So hopefully by the end of this talk, you're going to find some value. So I just want to survey the room here and ask, and please don't be modest, because I've actually seen some of your LinkedIn profiles and they're really excellent. And I agree with you, I think you are sat next to one of the gurus on LinkedIn. But how strong do you consider your presence and, importantly, strategy on LinkedIn? And 0 out of 10 is, it's terrible, I don't have one, and I don't know what I'm doing on this platform. To 10 out of 10, you could be here probably giving the talk. And just to put things into perspective, I think mine's actually not 10 out of 10, it's probably more towards the middle. But yeah, please raise your hands if you think it's 0 out of 10, just so I know kind of where we are with the talk today. Okay, what about earring towards more 1 to 4 out of 10? Okay, so a lot of you seem to be sitting there. What about sort of sitting in the middle? I feel pretty confident, but think could learn some more. Okay, and what about towards this end? 6 to 9 out of 10? You very, yeah, okay. And 10 out of 10? Okay, very, very modest. Okay, perfect. So I know what we're taking. So in terms of LinkedIn strategies, I think there's lots of potential thoughts around this, but I think there's actually 5 key strategies for LinkedIn. And you want to start by asking the question, why are you posting on LinkedIn? Now, you might find that you sit in one of these buckets, or you might find that you sit across all 5. That's fine. But it's worth thinking about which one do you want to sit in, and which one do you want to convey the message that you are. So the first is professional networking. It might be to build professional networks with colleagues, other people working in the dermatology space. Second is thought leadership. You might want to be the person who people turn to say, okay, I want to know what, say, Ellie thinks of melanoma, for example. I know that I'm going to go to her and I'm going to find really high quality information that's really easily accessible that I can share with my patients or with my colleagues. So that's the thought leadership category. You've then got education. This might be public-facing education, which is the area I sit in, or it might be professional to professional, peer-to-peer. And so that might be sharing relevant journal articles, it might be sharing the latest research that's happening in dermatology, it might be sharing patient-facing education videos. The fourth area is marketing, and you might want to go to LinkedIn and see this as like a sales funnel to your clinic or to your course offering, for example. And I've got some really good examples of how this has been done well later on in the talk. And then we've got peer-to-peer support and advice. So you might be turning to LinkedIn because you're unsure about latest guidelines that have been released. You might be turning to LinkedIn to build resilience and also find support from peers because you're working in a difficult environment, and someone else who I'm going to talk about later has done this really, really well, and I think this is a great area. But you could sit across all 5, and that's perfectly possible. So the title of the talk was The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. So we're going to start off with the good. And these are case examples of stellar healthcare professionals who I think are doing an amazing job on LinkedIn, and we're going to go through the case studies relatively quickly, but I think you'll get a lot of high value from this. So some of these are my colleagues and friends, and so I think they're doing an incredible job. And the first person I want to talk about is Dr. Vishal Virani. So Vishal, I would say, sits in this first bucket of being an outstanding professional networker. And he's head of YouTube Health UK, has 16,000 followers on LinkedIn, and he writes about YouTube health and digital health. And John, who's talking later today, is going to give you some more information on how to construct the perfect LinkedIn profile. But I'm also going to give you a couple of key tips and hints about why I think Vishal has done an amazing job. So firstly, there's 5 reasons. Number 1 is he's got a banner across the top of his LinkedIn page. Most people are missing this, but what Vishal does is he puts up straight to the front that it's YouTube Health. So you know that when you're going to his LinkedIn page, you're going to find content, hopefully, about YouTube Health, and sure enough, that's what he talks about. And all of the people I'm going to talk about today have got great banners. So that's the first thing. Secondly, he's got a really great custom profile photo. And you might think, okay, he's put a photo on there, he's smiling, but actually this is really well structured for several reasons. Number 1, he's smiling, and most people forget to do this. Number 2, it's a close-in of his face and shoulders. It's not a whole body shot. It doesn't have a busy background. And number 3, he's customized this by going to something like Canva and removing the background so it's a plain background. So I think actually you zoom in automatically on his photo there. The other great thing that he's done, and you can see in the third tick, is there's a little sort of shield there with a tick in it. That means his profile is verified. By doing that, you go to the area on LinkedIn that says, do you want to verify your profile? Click yes. And then what it will ask you to do is take your passport, and there's the chip in the passport, and you have to put your phone to it, and essentially you'll go through a verification process. And the reason this is important is because these profiles get 60% more views because of them being verified. Also, they're more trustworthy. So I would say if you're a health professional, you should definitely become verified, and it's very easy to do. The other great thing that he does is he links his personal website, Doctorpreneurs, underneath, so that when people are coming to visit his LinkedIn profile and want to find out more about him, they can use this as a funnel. And the other reason that I think this is really good is that Vishal has clearly stated he's Dr. Vishal Virani and has put his qualifications there. And I'm going to talk about why this is important in the second half of this talk. That's also something that's adding to his credibility. Vishal also does something else that's amazing. So in the About section underneath on LinkedIn, he puts a very clear but succinct piece of writing about what his background and relevant experience is to convey this to peers and external agencies who might be looking to work with him. Secondly, he states what his current role is, and importantly, the impact that he's having in that role. And third, he puts other relevant bits of information. So for example, he's currently a visiting professor at London Business School. He lectures on the UCL Global Business School for health courses, and he advises other startups. So if you're coming to Vishal's profile and you want to know, should I work with Vishal on certain things or have him as a consultant, you know that he's open to this. So let's break down a really great post that Vishal did. Now I'm going to talk you through how you can structure your LinkedIn post. So you've got a template that you can just refer back to again and again and again, and it's got proven success for growth here. So the first is the breakdown of the post, and the first really important thing you've got is the hook. And the hook is the thing that's going to draw the person in. So imagine you're out fishing, you throw your line in, the hook is going to be what grabs you the first catch. And the first thing that Vishal does is say, how do we encourage more bright young minds into the health sector? The hooks tend to ask a question or they make a really bold statement. So Vishal does this and I think, okay, I want to learn more about this. I'm going to read more about this post. The other important thing is when you're scrolling through the LinkedIn feed, it will typically only show you 1, max 2 lines. So you want your first line to be really powerful, impactful, and sit just on 1 line. So the second thing he does is state why this is important. So he really conveys to people, okay, this is super important for you to know about and here's why. Then he delivers value. This is the third really important thing. He says, okay, I'm going to share a range of new intern or work experience opportunities. And then he actually is linked to 50 different work experience opportunities. So if you want to go back to this post, save it, share it with colleagues, friends, people who are applying to medical school, you're going to go and you're going to remember this post. And plus the important thing is it's going to be shared and reposted many times, which is going to increase the reach of the post, therefore the reach of your profile, and people are more likely to follow you because you're delivering huge value here. And then he also has a call to action. So this is something else that all of the good posts and posters do. They put a call to action at the end. They don't just leave the post. They want people to engage with it, so they always ask a question. And Vishal said, please share any additional suggestions in the comments. That's going to encourage people to post in the comments. More people are going to then see this, more people are going to engage with it. Vishal's going to reply to the comments, hopefully, and it will boost the overall engagement of the post. And then the other important thing he does is he puts what I call media in the post. So he's put a still photo here, and that's going to also increase the reach of the post. So yeah, I think the call to action is really important because obviously this has then generated loads and loads of comments in the comments section. He's got 72, 73 likes on this post. There were 2 comments, there were 12 reposts. And I think the key thing is that you also want to add hashtags and tag relevant people, but the important thing is don't overdo it. Don't tag 50 people because, to be honest, that will just get quite annoying. So moving on now to the second bucket, this is thought leadership. The person I want to highlight here is Dr. Zoe Mullen. So Zoe's a colleague of mine at Lancet Global Health. She's an editor-in-chief there. Zoe posts about research, and she's got 1,000 followers, writes about global health, diversity, equality and inclusion in the research space. Again, if you look at Zoe's profile, she's done all of the things that Vishal does really well. So she's put a great banner at the top, clearly stating what she does, why you should follow her. Her profile photo is very good. She's clearly verified who she is, and she's clearly stated what she does and where she's from. Again, Zoe uses a hook. So she says, is autism a superpower or is it a characteristic lack of empathy? She's asking these really important questions that kind of grab your attention. And then she does the gap, value add, call to action, and puts some media in. So she explains why this is important for journal editors and people who are submitting things to journals to be aware of. She then asks people to read the article, and she links to that. And then she encourages people who are submitting journals to read the article and then follow the advice they give. Again, huge amount of likes, great engagement, lots of reposts. The third bucket, education. I'm going to focus on one of my colleagues and friends, Dr. Aziza Sese. She's a GP and a fantastic clinical content creator. I'd encourage you all to find her profiles and follow them because I think she delivers huge value. She's got 2,000 followers on LinkedIn, and she really focuses on patient education, women's health and health equity. Again, you can see, and I'm not going to labour this point, but just look at her profile and refer back to this. They're all following the kind of same similar theme. So Aziza's fantastic because she uses video really, really well. And I think this isn't something you should be afraid of. I know lots of people don't necessarily like appearing on camera, but Simi's here and Simi's going to give a great talk on that. And hopefully she will encourage and inspire you to consider integrating video as part of your overall content strategy, because that's the way LinkedIn is going. They're moving away from kind of the still post, and the more you're going to put video on, the more engagement you're going to get. And so again, that will raise your profile and also help with growth overall. So Aziza's done an amazing video here, which is 5 things to remember about bowel cancer. And typically if you're posting a video, try to keep it short, because the way the algorithm works is they want you to watch the whole video. And if you watch it again, that's even better. That will obviously boost the post. And also if you keep it to 3 or 5 things, you're going to hook people's attention. They'll think, okay, I'll stay around and I'll watch what these 3 or 5 things will be. And so video can be really important in integrating this. 4th bucket was around marketing. So this is Tiernan McKeever. I consider him the go-to person in terms of healthcare digital marketing. He's actually a medical student, but he delivers massive value if you're running a clinic. And he knows all about SEO in the healthcare space, social media and advertising specific to healthcare professionals. Again, Tiernan does all of the things that everyone else is doing well. The other thing that you might notice up in the top right-hand, sorry, I'll just go back to that slide. The top right-hand corner is there's a little bronze button which says in. This is premium LinkedIn. I would encourage you, if you want to get it. I've been experimenting with different strategies on LinkedIn. I would say LinkedIn Premium is actually well worth it. So giving you an example of what Tiernan does well, he again has a great hook, and he says how a GP practice in the Northeast is mastering patient communication on Facebook, and has the downward pointing arrow because he knows that you're just going to see that first little teaser and people will then want to expand on that post and read more about it. He then goes in to say how his team has amplified a GP practice presence in the Northeast, basically doubling interactions on Facebook. And then he gives a great value add. He doesn't just leave it at that and say, look guys, I've done this amazing job, congratulate me. He says, how can you replicate this? And so he puts 3 really important points for other GPs to replicate it. And again, I think they deliver huge value here. And this is really clever because he's delivering free value here. And if you read this and you think, I really like what he said, it's basically a funnel lead to people think, okay, this guy's delivered free value. Imagine what he's going to do if I pay him and use his services. And again, he asks this question, what's stopping you? It's essentially a call to action and uses relevant hashtags. He again adds media. So he illustrates this point very visually to say, look at the impact that this has had. And again, great amount of likes, comments and reposts. The 5th area was peer support and advice. So this is someone called Dr. Tom Gedman, who's a really great guy, and he's a GP and a therapist, has got close to 3,000 followers on LinkedIn. And he writes primarily about burnout amongst physicians. And again, I think Tom's got a great profile. If I landed on this, I'm automatically drawn into it by the colors he's using, the bold text. And so I just think this is a great case example of how you could structure your landing page. He also clearly states what he is, has a call out which is sign up to my newsletter. So you're going to click on that. And again, he's using this as a great funnel. So Tom, like everybody else, has a hook. And he said, this is the missing step that GPs need when you're treating mental health conditions. He goes into it and actually tells a story. So if you're someone who likes telling stories and engaging with the audiences through that way, I think this is something that could be done really well. And Tom does this really well by telling really beautiful and, to be honest, quite emotional stories sometimes. And then he has a key take-home message about what you need to do. And the great thing is he builds in something here saying, so this Mental Health Awareness Week, I challenge you. So this is good for 2 reasons. One, he's timed this post around a key thing, which is Mental Health Awareness Week. So I would encourage you, if you've got time, to build out a calendar based on key days or awareness days, such as Melanoma Awareness Day or Skin Cancer Awareness Week. Time your posts around that, because the algorithm obviously knows there's going to be an increasing post around melanoma at that time. It's going to push these posts out. And the second thing he does is he challenges someone. He says, why don't you go and do this? And then he leaves a clear question at the end, what do you think? Encouraging people to engage. And something that Tom does really well is every single post he does, he puts great media in. It could just be a selfie shot like this, but actually this is going to change the engagement massively. If you posted this without the photo, it just brings that human element to it that I think is really, really important. Again, Tom's got great engagement on this, huge amount of likes, comments and reposts. So I'm sorry that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but I hope it's delivered some value. Does anyone have any questions at this point before we go into the second part? Yeah, Ali. Yeah, so that was a great question. In case you didn't hear it, the question was, what's the difference between connecting and following? Connecting means you're going to build a bridging link between the persons, so you're going to then be a direct connection, meaning that you can message them directly, privately, and they also are connected with you, so they can message you. Following is more of a one-way direction, so you're going to follow and you'll see all of their updates, but you may not necessarily be a direct connection, meaning you might not be able to message them through a direct message, for example. It's good to have both. You might decide, I don't necessarily need to connect with this person. They could be like a huge influencer, say like Ali Abdaal. You might say, I want to follow what Ali's doing because I want to learn from him, but I don't necessarily feel the need to connect with him, and it's unlikely he might want to connect with so many people. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Any other questions at this point before the second book? Yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, what does LinkedIn Premium add and how much is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think John will probably be able to answer this question better than me, but the thing that I've understood is, obviously because you're paying for something, I'm assuming the back-end algorithm's working by boosting your post slightly more. It also unlocks certain features, so I think there's a couple of like back-end features that you can look into. In terms of cost, I can't remember the exact cost, but it wasn't prohibitive. I think it was like £20 a month or something. But I think for the experiment that I've just tried with my own, which was try all these posts without LinkedIn Premium, see how they go. And some of them did pretty well. But then as soon as I purchased LinkedIn Premium, the posts did seem to boost significantly. And also it allows you to make, say, connections with people and write a much more detailed intro message. So instead of just sending a connection and the person's like, why are they trying to connect with me? It allows you to fill in like a much more detailed message, which is more likely for them to accept the connection and then grow the profile more. But I think John will be able to answer that question in more detail. So just in the interest of time, we'll move on to creating credible content online. So I know that one of the things that might prohibit people, especially doctors, from wanting to create content online and put it out there is it can feel quite exposing. You might think, you know, not many of my colleagues are doing this, I don't know how people are going to judge me, I don't want to post something wrong, and then the GMC start investigating me. I've had all of these like concerns and worries before, to be honest. And I'll be honest, for a long time it held me back from wanting to post stuff. So my primary platform is on YouTube. And when I was first posting stuff out there, I remember consultants would pull me aside and say, you should stop doing this, you know, I know the content you're creating is good, but what if you just make one mistake and then, you know, you lose your medical license, you'll waste your medical degree, people won't take you seriously. And so I stopped doing it for honestly 7 years because of the primary reason was a little bit of time, to be honest, but also just a fear that, you know, I wasn't qualified enough. Oh, I should wait till I get to SHO level. I should wait till I get to registrar level. I should wait till I'm fully qualified. So I sat down with Vishal, who's a YouTube Health UK, and some other colleagues at Academy of Medical Royal Colleges 2 years ago. And I said, we need to do something about this because people are turning to online media as their primary source of health information these days. We can't hide away from the fact that this is where people are going. YouTube alone is the second largest search engine in the UK for health conditions. 2 billion searches related to healthcare were conducted in 2023 alone on YouTube. People are going to TikTok to get their information. So we need to engage with it and we need to do it in a responsible way. So how do we go about doing this? And I'll show you what we've done. But first of all, I want to talk about the bad. So I'm in a room full of dermatologists and I wanted to just show you this post. Please don't judge me, but this is from a guy called Tim Spector. Many of you might know him through Zoe, and I'm not here to speak badly of Tim as an individual. But I think this is really dangerous, to be honest. So Tim has got a huge following and posted vitamin D regulates cancer immunity via the microbiome. Another reason to stop using SPF 50 all year round, which blocks our natural defenses. Now, I mean, I don't know what you guys think of this, but I read this. I was like, this is bizarre and dangerous. And look, 1.1 million views. If 0.1% of people adhere to this information, stop using some protection factor, that's 1,000 people. You know, 1%, we're talking about huge, huge numbers here. And so I think this is on X or Twitter, and it's flagged it as, you know, remember, this content might not be accurate. But if this was on YouTube, it would just be left there. If this was on TikTok, it would just be left there. And he's you know, in his title is Professor Tim Spector, MD. You know, I think this guy is like really reliable and trustworthy, but this is really dangerous. So what can we do about this? And we're going to cover this in this next section of talk briefly. And hopefully you're going to feel more confident to combat this kind of misinformation. And you guys are the ones who can be pushing out the correct stuff as respected dermatologists. So I just want people to raise their hands again. How confident do you feel in two things: finding and knowing how to cite accurate sources on social media. So all the way from not confident at all the way through to extremely confident. So who feels not confident at all? You don't know how to do this properly. Okay, what about somewhat confident? Okay, great. And then extremely confident. Okay, perfect. So there are lots of resources that you could learn about, but I'm going to highlight 3 key ones. So must-know resources started off with the National Academy of Medicine in the US, and they published this, I think, landmark piece, which was identifying credible sources of health information on social media, principles and attributes. So they essentially outlined how do you identify the credible sources and how do we know they're trustworthy, and this was mainly US based. Now, Academy of Medical Royal Colleges in 2022 decided, look, how do we basically replicate this but for a UK setting? And they published this white paper, which I'd encourage you all to read. But a year later, they thought, okay, how do we, beyond just saying how to identify it, how do we practically put this into practice? And so in May 2023, an expert group of people from Royal College of Physicians, surgeons, all the member representing bodies of the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges, and 2 of us as clinician creators, so myself and Rowan Francis, who you might know as Medlife Crisis on YouTube, sat down in a room and essentially said, we need to come up with 8 practical principles of how to get clinicians A, comfortable using these, and B, actually using some of these guidelines practically. So the statement was, we believe it's possible to devise a system to provide the public with guidance as to the credibility and sources and providers of health information. And there's 8 core things that you can do to do this. Number 1, when you're posting content online, use evidence-based information. So go to places like PubMed, go to Scopus, Web of Science, and try use the latest research out there and cite it. Put it into your LinkedIn post, put it into the description box on YouTube, for example. Secondly, try to have a consistent process for how you create content. It might be you sit down, you look through 3 or 4 sources, you then pull the most relevant information, and then you document that process so you've just saved it so it's online in case anyone comes to you, such as the GMC, although I don't think they would because they're too busy chasing people about other things. But I would say have a consistent process so that you're not just kind of licking your finger, putting it in the wind and publishing something online. Thirdly, try to be transparent and say, if you are working with industry providers, say this is a paid post, this is an advertisement, and it's better to be transparent about that rather than hide it and say upfront, this is who I'm working with. And the litmus test for me is, if you were sitting in your room full of colleagues and they watched the video, they read the post, could you defend yourself? And I think that's a really good marker to look at. Try also have regular updates. So the thing that's encouraged is you should do 2 things. Number 1, when was the post made? So this is specific for YouTube, for example. You can put, post was created on the 23rd of May, 2024. Next update is planned to be 3 years later. That's the typical time frame. And you'll see that on most NHS England things when you go to their website and look at their A to Z. Obviously, as an individual, you might not have the time or ability to do regular updates, but it's worth thinking about. The 5th thing is subject expertise. Say who you are and say what qualifications you've got. That builds trust amongst the public. And you can do that. You don't have to put in every post, I am Dr. James Smith, I'm a consultant dermatologist working at UCL, I have a PhD in this. You don't have to do that. You can put that straight up in your LinkedIn profile in the About Me section, just so people know and they can refer to that. 6thly, try look at multiple sources. Don't just go to one source and read that. If we went to Tim's post, we'd all be not wearing SPF today. So I think it's important that we look at multiple sources here and you cite those. Try where possible have peer review. So it could be good that you form a group of colleagues and you just get some feedback. So you might have a WhatsApp group, you might have an Instagram group on private, and there is a group of us as clinician creators, and we have a group and we sometimes share some of our latest content, say, look guys, what do you think of this? It's not every post we're sharing and trying to get feedback on everything, but it's good to have a feedback cycle, a little bit like revalidation or appraisal. It's good for external people to look at your work. And then finally, signpost. Say to people, this is what I think, but this is where you can get other trusted information. And you might decide to share about other sources from your peers. Again, a great way of expanding your network and expanding the reach of other people on LinkedIn. You might decide to signpost the NHS website, British Association of Dermatologists. Other things I'd encourage you to think about, and this is just a personal belief of mine, if you can signpost to non-English language resources, I think that's super important from a health equity perspective. And also if you can signpost to things such as resources for teenagers or children, because these are the people who are going to access your information. So try think of child-friendly information and try to make everything jargon-free when you're posting online. Another resource that I'd like to highlight to you, and again, I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail here, but this is an organisation called the Patient Information Forum. Can I just get a display of hands? Has anyone heard of this organisation or is anyone registered with them? Okay, so that's good and bad. So the bad news is that obviously PIF need to be doing a little bit more work amongst dermatologists about this. The good thing is, this is going to be a great resource for you guys. So particularly, and I'll point this out later, they have a how-to section. And they've covered most things, so how to create jargon-free content, how to accurately cite things. It's all free, openly accessible. I would encourage you to look at their website. You can also decide to go through the process of being PIF tick registered with them, which means you can display this green tick across all of your social media offerings, which essentially says an independent body and loads of well-known, reputable individuals and also organisations are signed up with them. But they go through a process with you about how to do those 8 principles and get this into almost a system for you to make it much easier. And you're going to feel much more confident, I think, in some cases doing this. So finally, the talk was the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to be honest with you and talk about, maybe some of the ugly side of things. And this is just to be completely transparent with you. This is a couple of my analytics. And so, I've talked about growing, but actually, if you look at my growth for the past 7 days, it's completely downward trended. And I did this on purpose. I didn't post anything. And I just wanted to see what happens. If you don't post, you don't grow. But that's fine. I was super busy this week. I didn't have time to do anything. So sometimes, I talk about strategies and building out content. But if you're busy, you're working a job in clinic, you've got stuff at home, you want to enjoy yourself, you don't want to have too much pressure on, don't be too hard on yourself. This is ultimately meant to be something enjoyable. But it's also important to zoom out. And actually, I have been pretty consistent this year. I have posted relatively regularly. I've tried to do 1 post a week. And actually, over time, this has led to over 150,000 impressions in a year and, over 100,000% increase on the year before. So I think, this is a slow thing over time, and don't put pressure on yourself. Enjoy this process, and, it's a good learning opportunity. Again, I'm trying to just be completely transparent and open and honest with you. These are some of the posts, and I'm sharing all kind of my back-end analytics with you, what did well. So, one of my best performing posts that got over like 13,000 impressions was a post I did on the public health announcement by the government around smoking cessation. My hook I thought was okay, and it was a potentially huge public health win that could be a generational change in the UK. It got relatively good number of likes, good comments, reposts, and actually was reposted by places like Department of Health and Social Care, also reposted by some leading anti-tobacco researchers in the US. I tagged them in it, by the way. And the things I did well were used hashtags, tagged relevant people, and they all had images and videos. Those were kind of the key things I noticed across all of them. And to be honest, what I didn't do well, some of them I didn't have a clear hook. I just posted a photo because I was like, I'm at the House of Lords today, I'm having a good time, and I just wanted to share this because it's an interesting experience for me. I didn't go with this thing of have a hook, I just posted the photo. And it did pretty well. But then I also didn't have clear take-home messages in some of them, like I said, and I didn't have a clear call to action. So those are things that I can improve. And again, this is a learning journey for everybody. This is the one that worked well, had the hook. I said to people, go and check out this video, and I actually put the video into LinkedIn. I didn't put a link to my YouTube channel, I just embedded the video directly, and then I did the relevant hashtags, and I CC'd in Department of Health and Social Care. Their social media team picked it up, and they shared it across their different channels. So finally, key take-home messages. Be clear on your goals, who you're writing for. Have a clear structure to post where possible, but enjoy the process. And if you just want to post something that day, post it. If you don't, don't. And then just try to be consistent where possible if growth is the thing that you're after. If you're just on it to share 1 or 2 useful insights a year, that's also completely fine. And enjoy it. And this is the 5-step process: the hook, the gap, the value, the call to action, and finally adding in media. Just want to leave you with some final key resources. I'm trying to just give you as much possible information so you can go and do what you want with it. This is the Hemingway app. This is awesome. This has transformed the way I write social media posts. You go in, you drop your text in, it breaks it down into 5 key areas, looking at things like phrases that have got similar, more simple alternatives, phrases that are sentences that are hard to read, and you can break it down, and it basically will make your post and content much more readable, much more engageable, and jargon-free, importantly. It's unbelievable how much jargon we use in the medical field, and it comes as kind of second language to us, but most people, if you go and ask them, even simple, like, what are hemorrhoids? most people are like, I don't know what a hemorrhoid is. But if you say, piles, oh, okay, I know what piles are. So I just think simple things like that are really important. And then, this was the how-to guides from PIF. And I would just encourage you to go to their website and check those out. Things like communicating benefits and risks and uncertainties. How do you do this in a simple but safe way? So finally, finishing off the question, think about what I asked at the very beginning of this talk. How confident do you feel? And now, hopefully, I've given you a bit more confidence, but how confident do you now feel about enhancing your LinkedIn presence in a credible manner? So not at all confident? Somewhat confident? Okay, I've still got a bit of work to do with you guys. And then much more confident. Okay, great. Happy for you to contact me. I'll be around all of today. And just want to say as well, a massive thanks to you for being so engaging and for taking part in all of the activities, because when you stood up here talking to consultants, it can be a little bit intimidating. But huge thanks again, and thanks to the L'Oréal team for allowing me to come and talk to you guys.